evening. I'm Melissa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Malaysia's long-awaited Media Council bill will soon pave the way for the country's first ever self-regulatory industry body. But concerns remain, however, will the Malaysian Media Council be truly independent, or will government oversight dilute its role? Well, joining us on the show today to discuss this further, I have with me here Razi Raza, spokesperson for Gerakan Media Merdeka, better known as Geram. Razi is also a member of the Pro-Tem Committee of the Malaysia Media Council. Razi, thank you for being on the show with me today. Are you quite encouraged by the tabling of the Media Council bill, finally, after so long?
Hello, Melissa. Naturally, we are very excited because basically the Pro-Tem Committee was formed in 2020, so it was 5 years at least. And among the first discussion we have is that this Media Council thing has been talked about since the 70s. But yeah, so it was a very, very long way coming, and we got like different generation of reporters, journalists, senior editors who are already talking about this from the start. And naturally, we are excited then and then now. Because,
Are there any concerns that you might have? I mean, I get the fact that there is, we are all heartened by the fact that's progress happening, but are there concerns that you might have about the setting up of the Media Council?
Yes. To be truly independent, we have like models like in maybe in Ireland, in Indonesia. Then we have that self-regulation, basically self-sufficient thing like going on. And then because in the bill there's provision of having two government representative, one from MOF and another from the Communication Ministry, and with voting rights. So it's a bit of a setback since we started discussion 5 years ago, but I think it's a good clear place to start. But there's some not resentment, it's just some reservation on the matter, especially for that.
Can you elaborate, Razi? What do you mean by reservations? I mean, are there concerns that having two government representatives on the council's board with voting rights, as you mentioned, might that compromise the council's independence? How does Geram view this? Do you see any scenario in which government involvement in the Media Council would be acceptable?
I mean, it's acceptable to have basically for status. Then we get seed funding from the government itself or whatever, and then there's a right to have representatives to be there. But for them to be voting for everything, it's problematic because in our media industry, we always got like VIP phone calls in the middle of the night, outside working hours. Then someone didn't like the story and then turned out and then go straight. And then if we have this council which is supposed to basically oversee that kind of thing, it wouldn't, I mean, it's like you're having a good thing going on, and then there's something that's problematic. I mean, because there are media in Malaysia that still very kowtowing to the government itself and sympathetic to some sort of politicians. So I mean, yeah, that's it. It's the reservation itself, because it's going to get better, and then we have to make the right people to be appointed along. So for example, even if there's the government representatives there, it has to be not the politician, it has to be someone who is professional and people who itself have their rights to be there. Like I said, people who maybe doing journalism, because government also owns several media in Malaysia. So yeah, it's professionalism. Yeah.
Can I ask you how it might work, the Media Council? When you talk about the two government representatives having voting rights, what is the composition of the Media Council? Does it work like a democracy, or is this more like the UN Security Council veto power?
Good thing there's no veto power. I mean, okay, I'm gonna congratulate the government as well because they are allowing this, because it's the first time ever where they for the representative from women in Sabah and Sarawak is taken into account. So even if you voted someone something, then you have to have these three the women and Bonian representative in the itself. And yeah, I think the composition is quite good. That's why I said it's just revision. It's not outright rejection, because there are two government representatives. There are four representative from the media companies itself, media owners. There are four representatives from the media groups and freelancers, and there are four representatives from the civil servant. So altogether, and then altogether there will be like 21 overall, and a chairman which is voted from outside and supposed to be independent. So the idea is like retired judge or something that's it's not beholden to anyone. But yeah, the composition is good. It's just their concerns are because our media industry is like this.
Yes, that's right. Just the composition, the structure of the media industry itself. Apart from the two government representatives being a part of the council, Razi, do you see any other challenges or potential obstacles in implementing the media council?
Yes, they are. I mean, before this, the only recourse for any complaints towards the media is court. And then, if a journalist is being brought to court for something, then the media council should have the right to basically back up their members. So they have to be some provision of self-defense for the media council to say something on any matter. If like I said, as one journalist is being like I said, being charged for sedition act, so media council should have a say on whether the journalist itself is doing things according to the code of conduct of journalism, which is supposed to be done by the media council.
Right.
And another matter is that because there are some confusion. I mean, we get both this is that the government journalists, I mean, because government have Bernama and RTM, so whether they are under the media council or not. I mean, we have been talking about this for a long time, and I think yesterday we have a town hall meeting with the deputy minister, and still the government representative from the communication ministry were like, still I'm not sure about it. So yeah, that's another thing.
What is the debate? Help me understand the pros and cons, or the arguments and counter arguments.
Under the provision said that media council has the power to censure. So any wrongdoings, any problems for the journalists under the media that's adhere to the code of conduct under media council. However, if there's a complaint against Bernama or RTM journalists, so they are subjected under the civil servant act themselves. So there shouldn't be two regulation that's been brought to one bill. And so what happened if the contract there's a contract journalist or part-time journalist, or maybe someone who's paid who's doing a freelance basis for the government? So where does they fall into? So these are the things that need to be ironed out.
Okay, that's quite interesting. Can I ask you to make the argument to the public why the average everyday Malaysian should care about the setting up of a independent, self-regulating media council? What's in it for the public, Razi?
Okay, in a working democracy, if you want to be freedom of speech and stuff, okay. For example, you say that this media is doing some there's an accident, and then this media have this photography that's too gory or disrespectful for someone, a victim, then you can directly complain to them. And because sometimes when you complain or you write letters to editors, and your last recourse is just to put and to go viral on Facebook. So and then your account gets blocked because it langgar the terms of services. But with this stuff you can directly involve and talk to the media council, complain about what's happening, and say there's a news written about you that's been published anyway online or on TV or published. You can complain that. I mean, I don't have the right for reply because your code of conduct said journalists should give you the right to reply, and this is written about me. You can complain that. You can be involved in that, and it wouldn't cost you much as going to the court. So there's a recourse on that, and you can be involved in it. And then you would have like freer. Okay, before this, we know that the supporters or people who like, okay, I'm looking at this newspaper didn't cover this right because the government might have told them. So with media council, there shouldn't be some things that you say that okay, this publication is berat sebelah, is supporting this party. So it will be a freer media. It will be better for everyone. And with freer media, everyone could basically we could return and read the news once again lah, because right now people don't really know. But I think we should have like good generation, because in our generation or our father's generation, we have this culture of reading newspaper in the morning because we subscribe to newspaper. Even we went to school, we have newspaper. But right now we don't really have that because people don't really know what news are doing now. So with this, it become freer, it become better, and we could set our own standard for the journalists and the industry to be better.
Well, there are some people who would argue that, okay, so if we have a media council that's self-regulating, it would allow for freer media, as you said. But we still have these repressive laws, right? We have the Printing Presses and Publication Act. We still have some of the provisions under the CMA. Does all of that, if it's not repealed, does it still mean that the media and the media council will still be operating under the same constraints that currently restrict the media today?
Yes, true. I mean, there's no denying that with the repressive regulation and rules are still here, we are kind of be fighting with our hands tied. But with the media council, there's another united voice to talk about that, to censure about that, to basically rule for that. So instead of just two hands being tied down, we have one hand free, so we can talk much. I mean, we are a long way from having that. I mean, our RSF ranking is still bad. And with this, we might make things better future. So we could make our news industry better and freer again, especially during this time, because you know the industry is changing and we see a better one. So like make better things for the future. I think that's the optimism side of it.
Oh, wonderful. Razi, thank you for being on the show with me. Razi Razak from Geram there. We're going to take a quick break here and consider this. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris. Let's continue our conversation about the long-awaited Media Council Bill, which promises a new independent body to regulate the industry. But how independent will it be, and can it really be? So joining me on the show to discuss this more is Firdaus Husni, who is the Chief Human Rights Strategist at the Malaysian Centre for Constitutionalism and Human Rights. Firdaus, good to have you on the show. Thank you for joining me today. Can we begin our conversation by maybe laying out why it's important that we have a media council? Why does Malaysia need a media council, especially one that is independent and one that is self-regulating?
Okay, all right, sure. So the idea for a media council, for a mechanism that upholds media freedom is not new. It's not something that's only put forward, you know, the last 1 or 2 years. It was actually talked about even way back 30, 50 years ago. And having said that, it was only in 2022 that there was a more concrete expression of intention to actually see this through the law. And it was then in 2020 that the Pro Tem committee was then formed. And so the whole idea is that when we talk about media freedom in Malaysia, it's always plagued by, well, issues of political interference through media ownership, for example, through, takedown orders, through, we've all heard the stories, or rather the open secrets. I shall not go into this, but it's so much so that credibility of information or credibility of the media is being questioned before you can even look into what is being reported. And I think that's a reflection of the worrying state of our media freedom. Hence the need for a media council that, very importantly, must be independent and very importantly must be self-regulating. They decide their own code of ethics, for example, and where there are issues concerning members, concerning media workers, the media council decides themselves what to do with it without interference from the government, without any potential political interference.
Right. So when you mentioned the need for it to be independent without interference from the government, how does that, how do you weigh that against the fact that there will be 2 government representatives on the media council with voting rights? How do you balance that consideration?
Well, I can't. So that's the concern really, because if on the one hand, if we want to sell this as, look, this is, us one step closer towards media freedom in Malaysia, media freedom here means it is therefore important to uphold media independence. And so therefore, you need a council that's neutral, you need a council that is self-governing. How can you use those adjectives to describe media council? If, yes, exactly, in the proposed bill under section 8, it says there that there has to be 2 members to be nominated by the government, nominated by the minister representing the government. That entirely defeats the purpose of it being neutral, which you now cannot call it that. Self-governing also, you now cannot call it that. And what I worry is that how are you, we already have a slew of laws that is very concerning in terms of freedom of information, in terms of media freedom. And you now want people to also subscribe to a media council in which it allows for space for more government control. It just doesn't jive. Yeah.
Understood. I want to ask you about SLAPPs, about strategic lawsuits against public participation. SLAPPs have often been used as a tool to silence investigative journalism in Malaysia. You put journalists and media outlets through lengthy and costly legal battles. But what might a well-structured media council be able to do to mitigate against the abuse of SLAPP measures against journalists?
Okay. So yes, I would say SLAPP, strategic litigation against public participation, is slowly becoming more and more in the conversation in Malaysia, and people see it for what it is and call it out. And we need more people to call it out, because the use of SLAPP by irresponsible corporations, for example, against media house, against journalism, it really drained their resources. It really demoralized the whole, media industry as the fourth estate. And so the way I look at it, and this is my ideal version, and I understand that the media council would need time to develop and be empowered and equipped with the right skill and knowledge and the know-how. And ideally, what I would like to see the media council, if we see a journalist being faced with a SLAPP action, for example, that the media council would lend its support to the affected journalists. And it could be, for example, through the issuance of a public statement, a strong public statement saying that we see that this is a SLAPP. There are other ways to actually address SLAPP, through judiciary, for example. That is one. But we all know going to court is the objective of SLAPP, to drain the resources, to drag matters in court. And so media council is a way that if this brought up to their attention, this can be resolved without having to go through those 5 to 6 years court process for one SLAPP. And that is what we want to achieve.
That is the hope of having a media council and having a helping hand or dealing with this tool to silence investigative journalism. Can I ask you then about the Malaysian Code of Ethics for Journalists? Because if I'm not mistaken, the Media Council will have disciplinary powers, or will be allowed to take disciplinary action against media practitioners. Is the Code of Conduct for Journalists, the Code of Ethics for Journalists, is that a good benchmark to be used to decide what requires disciplinary action, or is that another tool for censorship potentially?
Okay. Well, okay. I wish I can give a straight answer, but let me try. So the idea here is that if they are, for example, let's say a news reporting that incite hate, that have racist sentiments, and then somebody lodge a complaint about it. So you want the Media Council to be empowered to take action and then say that this is irresponsible reporting, or a journalist reporting irresponsibly when it involves a child, for example, or when it involves suicide, for example, right? So there is a need for the Media Council to be empowered with certain powers, and at the same time, we are also cognizant of the fact that when it comes to freedom of expression in Malaysia, and of course that relates to media freedom, there are a whole host of other laws out there already existing. That's already something at the back of a journalist's mind whenever they do their work, right? Like the Communications and Multimedia Act, printing presses, which is now being considered for further amendment. And then we also have the Sedition Act and certain provisions in the Penal Code. That is very worrying. And what we are seeing is that if we truly want an independent media, and if we truly want a truly functioning media council, these laws either have to be repealed or amended for it to be able to give power to media council to effectively carry out sanctions and whatnot. So that's the idea.
Firdaus, you mentioned a bit earlier that it will, take time. The Media Council will take time for itself to develop, to find its feet, to figure out its trajectory. But what is it that you think, or what do you believe should be the primary responsibility or the priority, if I may, of the Media Council the minute it's established?
Okay, well, priorities here would be, I would say, number one, in its operations. So as of now, there's a whole lot of discussion that for the operation, for the Media Council to be able to operate, it needs funding, and government will channel its funding, and that is being used as the reason why the government wants its representation in. But for it to find a good footing to start, then it needs to not worry about funding. And if funding comes with a condition attached to it, which affects their independence, then they're not going to be able to start on a good note. So for me, you need to be able to start on a good note and get that public confidence, get the confidence of the media workers for them to be attracted to, oh, this is something that I want to be a part of.
Firdaus, the funding issue, is it because the bill there are restrictions on where the Media Council can get its funding from, and the government has to approve that, the Communications Ministry has to approve sources of funding? Is that the consideration, the concern at the moment? Okay,
so yes, but more specifically where the funding comes from outside sources, where it's not government funding, where it is foreign funding particularly. While we understand that that is a concern, what we would like people to consider is that look at how it's being done with SOHACAM Act, for example. SOHACAM Act also has this, but it says here that where there is foreign funding coming in, that foreign funding can only be used for capacity building, for public awareness, public-facing initiative. There is no requirement that SOHACAM has to go and get approval from the minister. Why is there a need for an additional requirement here? And that's definitely not helping, the council to start on a good footing.
So would the council only be dependent on government funding, or is it really just subject to the discretion of the ministry?
Aside from foreign funding, the bill is silent on what it can and cannot do. So the way I look at it is that for a start, there will be government funding, and that's the discussion with the government as far as I understand it. But the idea is that it will not be forever reliant on government funding. Hence the provision for foreign funding and whatnot.
Okay, Firdaus, thank you so much for being on the show. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Firdaus Husni from the Malaysian Centre of Constitutionalism and Human Rights there, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thanks so much for watching. Good night.